In chapter one, they talk about the book talks about stakeholders and stockholders, and I never knew the difference between stakeholders and stockholders until this class. I used to just think that stakeholders were stockholders, and so actually, there's markets. The market stakeholders of business are employees, stockholders, creditors, suppliers, customers, and distributors, wholesalers, and retailers, and that makes up the whole business firm of stakeholders. Stockholders are actually who are individuals that are own shares of a company stock, and that's it's very interesting because stockholders. I own stock, and I thought I was a stakeholder, which I am a stakeholder, but it's a little bit of difference between they're not the same stakeholders and stockholders, and I learned that in this chapter. In chapter two, they talk about environmental analysis, and there are eight different types of environments that are considered when analyzing the environment. There's a customer environment, competitor environment, economic, technological, social, political, legal, and geophysical environments. All these are taken into account when looking at a strategic decision for a company, and it kind of related to me because in my management 496 class, is strategic management. We had to do a assignment with working with an external factor evaluation, and what that was that we had to take outside factors, external factors such as these, environment, economical, the political, the legal, and all that stuff, and we had to assign them a point value within our company. And based off of that point value, it determined where we were in this graph called the IE matrix, and that decided what kind of a course of action we should take, such as like growing and building a company, or holding and maintaining and not growing a company, or maybe possibly divesting and getting rid of a company. And part of that is based off of all these external factors. So it kind of I kind of thought about this, and it related to my 496 class as well. So yeah. Chapter 4 talks all about ethics. Ethics is obviously a part of every management textbook, but this is especially important because of recently about ethics in my life. Ethics is obviously, the determination of right or wrong conduct, and one of the main issues with ethics is that it needs to comply with legal regulations. Now, obviously, every business, there's ethical guidelines and moral guidelines for their business, and that's what helps guide them and not create chaos. And you know, and for legality purposes, they have to comply with them, or they can lose their jobs. How this relates to me is I actually, I'm play poker. That's how I make my money right now. And my dad called me up and he's like, "You need to pay your taxes for the money that I made last year during tax day." And I decided to. I told him, like, nobody gets caught doing, nobody gets caught not paying the tax for poker. Like, it's impossible to track. Let's just say we lost and write it as a loss. But I mean, in reality, I mean that's unethical. You got to pay your taxes. I mean, if they come and find out that if you're screwing the government out of money, if you're making money, whether even if it's gambling, you have to pay them. I mean, because it's illegal if you don't, and they could come get me. And it's also morally wrong. Hopefully karma will come back, and I'll be one of the few poker players that pay their taxes, and in the long run, I'll be rewarded by not going to jail probably. Chapter 6 talks about globalization. Globalization is the increasing movement of goods, services, and capital across national borders. Globalization is very important. It's becoming one of the biggest key issues in America today. A lot of outsourcing is going on, and everybody has to conduce to globalization through our country and other countries that we are using globalization against. It's funny because I had to write a paper for my Management 467 class on globalization. In my part of the paper, I wrote about the problems of globalization, as there are many. One of the issues with globalization is that there's a potential for increased number of unskilled workers to come across and work for less wage than the skilled worker. Another issue is that because we are globalizing and moving to other countries and nations, that culturally speaking, we're gonna overtake those countries and mess with our culture, and it really kind of gets kind of a little fuzzy with like cultural speaking when you go into another country and you kind of like inject your culture into them, and then just like troops going into a country, like a military, we're going in businessly and inducing our way of working and stuff like that. So globalization is a little funny, but obviously there's very positives about it, because it does get a lot of products moving, flowing, and it's a process, as the book says. One section that is talked about in chapter 8 is natural monopolies, and I just thought this was interesting. One, going back from the old Monopoly game, I mean, that's when you first learn about monopolies, controlling all the properties. And but the book is talking about natural monopolies, like the electric company owning owning most of the electricity. So it's inefficient for a second company to come in and try to do the same thing because the first company already has it, and then they can just raise their prices as much as they want without much force. And obviously, the government tries to control this by limiting those prices and access. And how this kind of relates is I was watching a movie called Atlas Shrugged, which is obviously like a 700-page novel, and it was a really really good movie. And part of the movie was talking about having like more of a socialist type country in the future. And what they were doing is one of the regulations they said is that one person cannot own more than one company at a time. Because what happened is the wealthiest people were owning like railroads or owning, in this case, steel, and they only want one person to own one company at a time, so that they don't have monopolies. And this affected the wealthiest people because now they can't have a conglomerate of ownership of companies, and it just caused mayhem in the movie. And they it really messed up the efforts of the heroes of the movie who were trying to get their product to save lives. So, but go watch Atlas Shrugged or read it actually, and you'll get what I'm talking about. Chapter 11 is all about environmental issues, and I think that's very important to talk about because we live in this environment and we need to protect it. Something that the government created was the Environmental Protection Agency with the EPA, and that was created to protect the environment. And there are organizations that they developed like OSHA and the NRC to combat these issues. And obviously, there are many laws that were in state to protect the environment, and many, presidents who go back and forth, wanting to protect the country and not protect the country. And I think it's important that, obviously everybody wants to recycle and, keep the world clean. But I feel like, in my personal experience, people don't do enough to protect the environment. I feel like even though the government has laws and stuff like the 1976 Toxic Substance Control Act, to restrict and ban, releasing toxins, toxic waste and stuff. I think people do it anyways, and I feel like it's not regulated that well. And obviously, there's trash in the streets. There's lots of lakes with a lot of crap in it. I live in Las Vegas, and there's a Lake Mead down the street, and it's so gross. I mean, it's not clean, and there's crap and trash in it and everything like that, and nobody does anything to clean it up or stop it. So obviously, the government hasn't done too great of a job yet to control people from making a mess of our environment. And I mean, there's been movies and such studies, and it's going to show that basically if we don't start protecting our ozone and our environment and our atmosphere, then the world might come to an end. So we need to get on it and stop making the mess of this. This week there's going to be an exam, so there's not going to be a specific topic to talk about, but one thing I want to talk about is obviously coming up to the exam is procrastination, because I definitely procrastinate with all my tests, with all my homework. I do them in the last minute. Sometimes I do a midterm hours before the test, and it's obviously not a good thing because a lot of times I don't retain the information. And I mean, I think probably a majority of students at school procrastinate and have poor time management skills, including myself. In business, time management is one of the biggest keys to success in the office or in the world. And I think that everybody you could tell the people who have time management, they come in on time all the time, they do all their work, they have a well organized planner, which is one thing I started recently was I started writing down in my planner what I'm going to do for the week, and if I read it and follow it, my time management skills are better. Because when they're not and my world's chaotic and I don't know what's going on, I get a little frustrated, stressed out, and obviously I procrastinate. I don't do what I'm supposed to, which results to several things such as lower grades, stress, which causes me to get all worked up. And the long-term effects are poor success in the work field. And if I don't start managing my time better and getting the things I need to get done when I should get them done, I'm not going to have success in the long run.